What's up guys, Gons here for the Face Like the Sun YouTube channel. Just a quick video about an article by Gizmodo written by Sarah Zhang. I guess at Gizmodo it's Action Hero Week, and she posted an article called Cat Eyes and Other Radical Ideas to Re-Engineer Humans for the Future. And basically she cites and interviews Matthew Liao, who co-authored a paper in ethics policy and the environment titled Human Engineering and Climate Change, where he argued that human engineering should be seriously considered as a possible solution to climate change. What if we could create a patch that made us allergic to red meat? Or pills that make us more empathetic? It all sounds pretty crazy here now in 2015, but human engineering for the greater good of the public is not unheard of. For the sake of public health, we vaccinate our children and add fluoride to the water supply. Of course, these actions have their attendant controversies too. I find it interesting that the concept of positive human engineering in the minds of these reporters, if you will, is vaccination and fluoride in water. Two things that have been shown to be detrimental to our health, not so much beneficial. At one point, my wife was going to nursing school, and in order to work in that environment, she had to actually get vaccinated with certain vaccines. But in the process, she actually learned, and the teachers were honest about it, they said, don't ever vaccinate your children if you don't have to, because they're dangerous, they're unstable, and, I'm not going to get into the whole vaccination debate here, but you've seen the stories recently with vactruth.com reporting about a month ago that a 6-month-old baby died just 5 days after receiving 13 vaccines. But the bigger problem with the whole vaccine issue is that these vaccination companies are immune. They can't be sued. Health Impact News reported, parent denied opportunity to sue Merck after collecting $250,000 blood money for MMR vaccine death of child. So the vaccination topic is a big one. I don't want to really get into it too much here, but there's a lot of resources online that you can look at to show that this whole vaccination thing is definitely a concern. And if they make vaccinations mandatory, it really is taking away a lot of our freedoms. But getting back to this Gizmodo article, Sarah Zhang, the author, interviews Matthew Liao in a short Q&A, and you could go through it. I'll just point out a couple of things that stood out to me. Once again, after suggesting that human engineering is inevitable, he was asked, you're saying that human engineering already happens? He states, quote, I think in terms of drugs that will enhance us, it's already happening. Fluoridation in the water is also a form of enhancement, and we do it publicly across populations. And so why couldn't we do something like it across other areas? That's generally the idea behind the paper, to think about these things we hadn't thought of and to try to encourage people to think outside the box. Again, why is fluoridation in the water an enhancement? And why do they keep using that as an example? It's just bizarre. Am I missing something here? Other things that stood out to me, there's a link here to previous articles, this one called The Real Science Behind the Crazy Night Vision Eyedrops. Basically, these Columbia scientists came up with these drops for their eyes that gives them temporary night vision. And while some of the tests that they were doing were inconclusive, and, they talk about how they need more testing and stuff like that, I found it interesting that the effects of these drops is just blacked out eyes. Because we've heard about the black-eyed children. I mean, if this doesn't look satanic to you, I don't know what does. But again, getting back to this article here, there was another link to another article by the same Sarah Zhang. She seems to be writing a lot about this topic. Everything you need to know about CRISPR, the new tool that edits DNA. And, you go through this article, and again, it just talks about editing DNA. And she's very optimistic about this stuff. It's a positive effect on ecology and conservation, and it's for preserving the environment, and, it's going to help cure diseases and stuff like that. But ultimately, they're ignoring, for the public, the dangers, the potential dangers. They're pushing the positive side, and there's no balance on the negative side. That's why I think independent people, researchers like ourselves and other reporters and things like that, we need to get out there and just say, hey, let's talk about this. Let's reconsider what it means to be human. Let's reconsider what is sacred and just have that conversation, especially with friends and family who might start getting interested in participating in these sorts of enhancements. And actually, the reason why the whole biohacking night vision thing came up, I sort of missed it earlier, was because Liao was talking about studying cat eyes to enhance human eyes to have better night vision so that we can globally dim the lights to reduce energy consumption. So again, it's a very positive outlook. It's always for the benefit of the whole, but the question should be at what cost? What is being sacrificed in order to get to where they want to go? And there's a couple scriptures I just want to read for you to wrap things up because I think they're so relevant. First off, 1 Corinthians 6:19 states, "Or do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit within you, whom you have from God? You are not your own." And then if you keep going, verse 20, "For you were bought with a price, so glorify God in your body." Now the context here is sexual immorality, but I think it applies across the board here. When we're starting to talk about genetic enhancement, human engineering, and that kind of thing, we are tampering with the temple. And at some point, the temple is not going to allow the Holy Spirit to dwell within anymore. And that's the question, especially for Christians. We need to be aware of this stuff. And how does doing these enhancements glorify God? They don't. They play into the pride of man. They play into the lie from the Garden of Eden that our eyes would be opened. We will be as gods. And it makes total sense, because if you read 1 Timothy 4:1, I think this whole transhumanist movement and everything associated with it is doctrines of demons. And here's 1 Timothy 4:1 that says, "Now the Spirit expressly says that in later times some will depart from the faith by devoting themselves to deceitful spirits and teachings of demons." Some translations say seducing spirits and doctrines of demons or doctrines of devils. I think this whole transhumanist and pushing for genetic engineering and all this stuff is exactly that, doctrines of demons. And actually, if you read verse 2, I think it's very telling. "Through the insincerity of liars, whose consciences are seared as with a branding iron, or as with a hot iron." You know, a lot of these folks, because they have compromised or just completely taken out the idea of what is sacred, what it means to be human, their conscience is seared. And as you know, your conscience is this inner voice helping you guide right or wrong. It's that moral compass that's within you. And when you don't have an objective point of reference, which is what has been removed with the secular worldview, with the theory of evolution at the root of all this stuff, with occult ideologies, it strives to remove that objective point of reference that comes from God, that external piece that gives you moral guidance. When that's removed, then it's the same thing as our conscience being seared as with a hot iron. And that's what's happened with a lot of these folks who are pushing for genetic change and all the things associated with the transhumanist movement. So hope you get something out of this, guys. I know this wasn't the most informative video, but I thought I'd rant a little bit about this Gizmodo article because it's just more evidence. We're tracking all this stuff for a reason. It's just becoming so blatant in articles like this, and it's only a matter of time before we start seeing friends and family start to partake in these sorts of developments and technologies. And I think that's where we can make a difference in terms of slowing it down, or, you know, at least talking about these issues with friends and family. Those are the people in your life. That's where you can say, hey, let's sit and talk about this. What does it mean to be human? What is sacred to you? And do you really need to partake in this stuff? So just some food for thought there. Hope you have a great day, guys. God bless.